Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item on our agenda is a public forum trust fund hearing for the Facilities Expendable Trust Fund for engineering services for the elementary heating system. And I guess, Brian, do you want to speak to that? This is the public hearing.
Yeah. And the last page.
So the trust fund is for us to request up to $30,000 to hire. Get an associates to be doing the engineering necessary to move forward with the heating system plans. The total is $30,000 for that. This is based on the information we've received over the last few years, noting that we do have to replace these oil tanks at some point coming up. The board, based on all the information that we've been given over the time, has come to the conclusion that it's time to move forward with this project. To our best knowledge, this is the best course of action for us to go forward and begin engineering of this project and get the heating system brought up to the quality that it should be at this point in time. We have one choice.
It's been a long conversation over many years, so. Anybody from the public have any questions, concerns regarding the project? It'll be a dual fuel system for the elementary school. Yeah. Board members?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Well, I'll make a motion to expend up to $30,000 for the engineering services for the elementary heating system. That was a second from Joe Bossi. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? That motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all you guys have done.
I'd like to adjourn to the regular scheduled board meeting, and the first item on our agenda is I'd like to welcome Attorney Barry Christina and Attorney Mark Dolan from the School Board, New Hampshire School Board Association. We've asked you to come and speak, and we thank you for coming up to discuss the strategic planning process.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Do you mind if we come and join you at the
Yeah,
table?
absolutely.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
So one correction, I'm not an attorney.
Oh, you're not?
I'm an engineer.
Oh.
But thank you anyway.
Good evening. Thank you, members of the Lin-Wood School Board, for inviting NHSBA up to talk tonight about our strategic planning services. Matt and Vance, good to see you again. Mr. Bossi, you were in Concord a month or so ago, right?
Correct.
And Mr. Angeloni.
It depends on the size of the family.
Well, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for the invitation. My name is Barry Christina. I'm Executive Director of New Hampshire School Boards Association. To my right is Mark Dolan. Mark is a consultant for NHSBA that does our strategic planning services. I believe you have packets that Judy sent around. We understand that you do have a strategic plan in place, but you're looking at maybe either changes or updating or revising or new plan, something along those lines. Our purpose here tonight is Mark's going to walk you through the process that NHSBA employs. And, I don't, if a decision's made tonight, great. If you need to contemplate, think about it, for another couple meetings and discuss it, follow up questions with us, we're happy to do that as well, too. And then once the board has a sense of what it's looking for, we can engage and ascertain how many hours it's going to need and what level of services that we think you'll need for the strategic planning. In case he forgets it, I do want to mention that Mark is a former school board member, which is one of the reasons that we're pleased to get into the board. So he understands what it's like being on in Stratford, SAU 44, about an hour south of here. So he understands what it's like being on a board, the challenges of putting together a strategic plan, what it takes, not just from the consultant side, but from the school board side as well, too. So I'll turn it over to Mark to talk about what his service and process looks like.
Great, thank you. Pleasure to be here. So I've been doing this service for about 15 years. Usually I work with 1 or 2 school districts a year, and I'll go through the process with you. Typically, it's a school district that either has no plan at all, or the one they have is old and everybody that built it has moved on. That's not necessarily the case with this district. You have a plan and you look at it regularly, I understand. So some of this will apply, some of it may not apply, but I'll just walk you through the steps that I take with school districts. I've worked with, I don't know the number, but over 15, so like one a year. I'm currently working with Muskoma Valley. I just finished up with Hudson. So a lot of this is real relevant to information for what they just went through. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the process, it's really a process to begin to talk about, open up a dialogue about where do we want to be in 5 to 10 years, our future, what's our desired future. Many times we get overwhelmed in the day-to-day fire drills. And before you know it, 5 years is come and gone, and we never really did what we wanted to do. So a plan helps put those thoughts down on paper. It helps set priorities. One of the things I often say is you want to make sure the plan is manageable, affordable, understandable, so you can get it done. So we can't have everything in it. So sometimes the hard decision is, what are we not going to put in the plan? What are we not going to put our limited time, money, people towards? We have to be selective. So I'll talk a little bit more about those things called focus areas in the plan. Going to the next slide, the graphic. It's not necessarily a 6-step process, but these are the 6 major steps. And I call it a collaborative, visual, and strength-based approach. Collaborative meaning if you're a stakeholder, you're going to have a chance to have a voice in this process. And I'll explain what that means. Visual, I use a lot of visual graphics in the work I do with small teams. Strength-based. We look at it from the aspect of not what are we doing that's not, what are our weaknesses? What do we need to fix? We look at it from a strengths base. What's really working well for us? How can we build on that? So that's a little different approach. I'll talk more about that. The important point of this slide is 4 months. 4 to 5. I don't like to go any longer than that because people get burned out. It's a lot of time, many nights, some weekends. So 4 to 5 months is a pretty good time frame. So it's not years, it's not 2 years. It's really 4 to 6 months. About a meeting or 2 a month, roughly. So that's the time commitment. Next slide is those details, which I just said, 2 to 3 per month. The real kickoff of this process is I will meet with the board and leadership, school leadership. I listed a retreat here. That's usually what we call it. To talk about the current reality. What are things that are happening right now? We start to talk about if you have a vision, what is that vision? Is that the right vision? Do you have core values and beliefs? Are they still valid if you have them? If you don't, great, the process can build those. Focus areas. What is leadership and the board's idea of the most important priorities? That's what a focus area is. And then a timeline. We lay out a timeline. And the proposal I get back to you says by day, month, and time when we're going to meet. So when you go out, and that's the next step, to develop and establish a committee, they know what their commitment is. Okay, I've got 2 meetings in June, 2 in July. So that's what's next is a committee is formed that does a lot of this work. It's made up of board members, superintendent, absolutely, principals, teachers, community members, parents. And I'm always asked, well, what's a good number? 10 to 12 is a good number. Hudson had 22. Mascoma Valley has 13. I can work with any number, but certainly not 5 and 6. It's going to be a little bit bigger than that, because you want all those perspectives, and it's a lot of work. So the more people you have, they can lighten the load. The goal of this committee is to develop the plan, decide on the best method to get the input from community, and I'll talk about that. That's kind of an exciting part of this process. The committee is also charged with determining the focus areas. Now, that first meeting with the board and leadership holds a lot of weight. Here's where leadership and the board wants to focus, and usually those become part of the plan. And the committee may add 1 or 2 other areas that the community is interested in. Put together goals and strategies and create a new vision statement. So those are the steps of the process. For this group, I added in review any existing strategic plans and goals. Some schools have a plan. It may still have some gold nuggets in it. It still may be useful. So the first meeting with the board and leadership, when you have a plan, will be to look at direction, alignment, and commitment. Kind of assess your plan. Do we agree on what the goals are in here, and do we all agree that it means the same thing? So that's the clear direction. Are we aligned? Are we well coordinated? Are we supporting what's in the plan? And are we committed? Are we all really committed to this? So that is the kind of the assessment of the plan. And as a result of that, it can go in a number of directions. You can just refine your plan, make a quick update. You can throw it out and start over, and anything in between. But I think for this group, I think since you've got a plan, this first step of assessing what do you have in the plan, whether it needs to stay in there, is important. Because what I've found is once something becomes operational and it's part of our day-to-day, you don't need it in the plan. The plan is for things you want to do, not things you're already doing. That's an operational plan. You can handle that separately. Many times, everything is in the plan, and it becomes overwhelming. And you miss the fact that there's some strategic things we want to begin to work on. So that's that slide. So now the committee, exploring and learning, I'm on that. Now the committee begins their work. They'll look at any relevant data on student performance, any data that's available. We want to bring a data-driven approach to this. And then these are the two big questions that are asked and are carried throughout the whole process. The world's changing. I don't need to tell anybody that. Technology is changing, and education is changing. But it may not be keeping up. Right? It may not be keeping up. So how can we redesign the way we educate students to best prepare them for this world that is changing? Not an easy answer. But it's the theme, it's how we want to think about putting this plan together with a future focus on the students. Moving on to the next one, common ground. So this is a community forum. So one of the first things the committee will do is I'll ask them, okay, how do you want to get input from the community? And they'll have all kinds of wonderful ideas, like, oh, there's an open house on Thursday, and we've got the town event. Usually it boils down to what I call listening sessions. We'll invite the community to 2 or 3 different community listening sessions where the whole committee will be there. I give them a script. I give them a guide to follow, to talk to the community. So 7 or 8 questions. And we design it so that, let's say there's 50 people. There are 2 committee members at every table, and they're hearing from the community, and they're listening. So the word is, I use the word listening on purpose. It's not for the committee to get into a debate with the community. It's for them to take the input and listen and understand what the community is looking for. So we get hundreds and thousands of responses. And it really energizes the community. Mascoma Valley did a survey, an online survey for those that couldn't come to the 3 community listening sessions. I think they got about 130 responses. They surveyed the students, the staff, and they're all done with that. It probably took a month and a half to do all that. So that eats up a lot of time. But in the end, you can say, we reached out to as many people. You had the opportunity to have a voice. But then the work starts. Okay, we can't do everything that everybody said, as I mentioned before. So the committee goes through the strengths opportunity, aspirations, and results process. What are we doing well? What are our best future opportunities? Okay, what do we care deeply about? A lot of that is, these are similar to the questions we ask the community. All right, so there's a theme going through that. It's a positive approach. If we ask a different set of questions, like, what's not working? What aren't we doing well? We'll get those responses too, and it'll just be all negative. While we don't ignore those things, we try to build on the things you're doing good. And that's empowering by itself, because there are good things going on. But for some reason, us humans always seem to focus on what's not working. Right? You know, that report card, there's all A's, but there's a C. What do we say? What happened in this class? You got a C. It's just human nature. I try to counteract, I kind of try to balance that off with a more positive approach. Opening to a vision. So we'll start to create a new vision statement. The exercise I run them through is, I want them to develop an elevator brief. Because too many vision statements are long and wordy, nobody knows what they mean, and they can't articulate it. If you were to get on an elevator, superintendent, and some new community members were getting on board, and they're thinking of moving to the town, they said, what's the vision for your school? You should be able to tell them in an elevator ride that they can remember. So, and sometimes the vision statement becomes a slogan, but it can be a powerful message. All right, so when you think vision, don't think of a big long thing. Think of a short, one-sentence vision statement that anybody who asks, who's involved, can tell you what it means. He can tell you it. And then we get into the real meat of it, the goals and strategies. This is where we got a vision, right? We know what our reality is because we had that leadership meeting. We know what the current state is. We know what we want to become. Now we got to bridge that gap with goals and strategies. So this is where the focus areas come into play. We have to whittle that wonderful list of ideas from the community and everybody else down to strategic focus areas. I've listed a couple examples here that always seem to come up. Can't argue with them, right? They're pretty standard. But then we get into a debate of, okay, but what about this focus area and what about that? So the committee has to decide how much is enough. I give them a general sense of 3 to 5 focus areas. Because each focus area is going to have a goal statement, 1 or 2 or 3. And then each goal statement will have what I call a SMART strategy. I'll talk about that in the next. So you might have only 3 focus areas and go, that's it? Well, no, you've got 2 or 3 goals per focus area and 5 or 6 strategies. Next page. Underneath that. That is a lot. So 3 focus areas might not sound like a lot. It is a lot of work to execute that. I've seen it. SMART strategies, for those of you that are familiar with the acronym SMART, specific, measurable, I can't emphasize measurable enough. Time-bound is important. Relevant and attainable. So what I recommend is they use 1, 2, and 3 year strategies. So by school year 2020, what do you want to be working on and have accomplished to meet that goal? By 2021, what do you want to be working on? So it's time-based, kind of a 1, 2, 3 year strategy. Usually the strategies, believe it or not, don't go out to 5 years, even though it's a 5-year plan. The reason is, who knows what's going to happen 4 or 5 years from now? Let's focus on year 1. Pretty good idea about year 2. Year 3 is a little fuzzy, but we'll stop there. Because after 3 years, you're going to want to reassess this. You want to do it every year, but 3 years might be a time to rewrite it.
Or you're going back to something that you had accomplished 3 years ago that needs to be renewed or revised or whatever the case may be.
So it sounds kind of strange. We have a 5-year plan, but we only have 3 year strategies. Our target is 5 years. We want to have all the goals achieved by 5 years. But to put together 4 and 5 year strategies, it gets kind of hard to predict that far. So year 1, when you do an assessment, you might change your year 2 strategies. Your goals shouldn't change. In fact, the goals don't have measures in them and they don't have time in them because they should always be those goals. And I don't have an example of a good goal statement, but it's around those focus areas. The goal statement should carry year in and year out. It really should. Because your goal for educating students, engaging the community, right? Professional development, once you write a good goal statement, that's your goal as a school district. How you accomplish that, that's going to change, and that's where the strategies come in. So the road ahead, now that we have a plan, goes to the board for approval. And because we have board members on the committee, my expectation of those board members on the committee is they will keep the rest of the board plugged in to focus areas, what the community said, all along the process, so there's no surprises at the end. That completes the committee's work. And then it's up to, this is the hard part, right? Now we have to implement this plan. Leadership to identify, okay, who's responsible for the goals by name or position? Who's responsible for monitoring it? And certainly the board has a role in that. I recommend the agenda always have a strategic plan item in it. So you're always asking about it. Superintendent's always reporting on it, or who's ever responsible. You took a lot of time in this process to bring in the community. Don't forget that. So while the community typically doesn't come to board meetings, I've seen that a lot in New Hampshire, you need a way to get information out to them on here's how our plan is going. So there's an additional document that I can put together that helps communicate to the general public. The actual plan that I'm talking about here is a document that will go out to the public, but it probably has a lot of words in it, and once you see it, you don't need to see it again. I won't call it a report card, although it's kind of a report card for the general public, which is a little different than what the board will probably want to see. You'll probably want to see a lot finer detail. So while we deliver a plan, we are working on something that helps, because it's been a request from superintendents to develop something beyond the plan. How can I better report progress to the school board now that we have a plan? So we're working on something, and I think I sent you, Judy, the beginning of a template. I don't know if you have it in your packet. Where that's it.
Oh,
Very simple, right? But if you can take the words from the plan, plug it into that, and have a conversation around, okay, what are we measuring? What's our goal? What's our baseline measure? And what do we want to be in year 1, year 2, year 3? You can start to understand better progress. So that's the beginning of something that we're starting to build. I'll be building it for Mascoma Valley, and that product, I can send it to you, and you can adapt it however you want. So implement the plan and then periodically review it is just the last 2 points. Don't forget about it. Because the day-to-day, as I mentioned before, always will win, in my opinion. It always wins over the future. Right? I got to deal with today's problem. And you don't make room for the future stuff. My last slide is key points to remember that just going through this process alone sometimes is more important than the plan. Because you've opened up the dialogue, you've talked about what's important. Sometimes that can change the dynamic in a school district. And the content of the plan has to be understood by everybody. So a lot of times, and I'm dealing with this now, the committee in Mascoma Valley, the community members are saying, I don't know what you mean by a professional learning community. I don't know what you mean by whatever the jargon is. So we're changing the terms in the plan, and we're going to put in for those terms that we don't change, because many of the educators have said, this is what it's called. You can't call it anything else. This is what we're now doing. Proficiency-based, competency-based, for example. So we're going to put in a kind of a dictionary, I'll say, glossary. Here's what it means. Because we all need to be talking the same language. They can't be the school speak, and I don't know what they're talking about. If you're really going to have an aligned community around this plan, you got to understand the words. So part of the plan is for educators to educate the community on this is what it means. Because people will support something that, one, they helped create, and two, they understand, believe. If they don't understand it, they're not going to support it, typically. And this is not an isolated event, right? Continual refinement, conversations, keep it going. It's a dynamic plan. It's not set in concrete. I'd say after a year, give it a year of runtime unless something drastic happens and you need to make a change. But 1 year is a pretty good timeline to say, all right, how are we doing? Do we need to change this? Is this headed in the right direction? And this is the plan for the district. There aren't other plans out there. There isn't a middle school plan, a high school plan, school board plan, I advocate that this is the plan for the district. So we'll bring in other plans that exist as part of this, to bring it into one plan. Any questions? Thanks for listening.
What's the realistic success rate for a plan like this?
Good question.
Good question.
Well, I mean, in your experience in other places, what's the realistic?
What makes plans not as successful as they could be has nothing to do with the plan. It has to do with turnover of board members, turnovers of superintendents, and just budgets don't support it. Other things outside of the plan usually, I won't say kill the plan, but make it hard to implement.
I mean, like you said, for the first 3 years, I'm sure it will roll right along, but I'm sure it must kind of fade. So I mean, keeping the focus there, I would imagine it would be difficult.
Yeah.
What I recommend is that once the plan is in place and you feel comfortable, there should be an agenda item at every school board meeting that relates back to the plan. It doesn't have to be every aspect of the plan, but there should be something on the agenda just to remind the community and to remind the board, even if it's not an action item, even if it's just a simple report. The subcommittee met 2 weeks ago, they're finalizing the report, they're going to bring it back to the meeting, the next meeting. That's what keeps it fresh, that's what keeps it rolling, that's what keeps the board, the administration, the staff, and the public aware that we spend time and effort and money on this. Let's make sure that we get a good result, whether or not that's 6 months after the plan or 3 years after the plan.
Having a relationship with the plan. after
Correct.
it's in place.
That's right.
Correct, it's a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, the last strategic plan that was put into place, was that born from the accreditation process?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, it's a great document, but there's a lot of stuff in there.
Right.
And there's a lot of technical components to it.
Yeah.
There's some adaptive.
Is this the NEASC that?
Yeah,
That's
and there was community.
that's made for educators.
Right, and that's the piece of it, and I think that's what we're trying to not get away from that, because there's some really valuable information in that process, but that's other educators looking at other education
Right.
systems. And there were community members, I believe, involved in part of that process, but it wasn't, the way we envision this is a more community-centric,
Centric.
holistic approach towards, let's define what our vision is for our school district moving forward, and create that vision, and create that mission statement, and create what we want as a community. This is the centerpiece of our community.
Right.
Let's get all the stakeholders involved in the conversation and put something in place that we can go back to that has, like you said, some SMART goals to it,
Right.
some real action plan that's involved to it, and some benchmarks.
Some
But not
schools actually-
overwhelming where there's
Correct.
30 to 50 things we need to do in fact. No one can do that. Then you just
That's
put it
another
away.
thing. Too much in the plan, you can
Yeah, you put it
crash
away,
and
you
burn
put it
the
in the drawer,
plan.
you don't look at it again because
That's
it's too
exactly
overwhelming.
Some schools put the NEASC actions as a goal statement.
Yeah.
Right in.
Yeah.
Okay, we will work on the NEASC recommendation, boom, and then it's in the plan. And it's not a separate activity.
Yeah.
That's one way to do it too.
And I think the community sessions, the listening sessions, are probably extremely powerful and valuable to
Absolutely.
creating where we want to go.
Yep.
It may take down some walls that exist, and make it, everybody feel part of the process.
I agree. And there's some interesting, I'll call them innovative ideas that
Sure.
come out
Yeah.
from those sessions. Yeah.
Anyone else have any questions?
No, I like it.
I mean, when we form a committee like this, and we do planning sessions, community, whether they're forums or information presentations, are you guys there typically?
I can be. When the strategic planning committee makes a presentation to the board, you mean?
Yeah. Well, no, when we have,
The community listening?
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm facilitating those.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I'm the outsider that says, thanks for coming, everybody. We've got a list of questions. Each committee member is there.
Okay.
Yeah, we're here for 2 or 3 hours. Yeah, that's my role. And then I also will document some PR stuff. Because when you're done with that, people want to know, what did you do?
Right.
Who said what? So we put out kind of a summary. It's hard to capture what everybody says. But yeah, we can get back to the community on that. So my role is to create some initial, I'll call them PR documents, that ultimately come out through either the superintendent or the board, somebody on the committee. that represents
And
that.
outside of that, I think that the value of having a facilitator, like a third-party facilitator, is like when I was speaking about walls, it's not us.
Right.
We're not
You know,
pushing.
we're not pushing something. This is something that everybody has a voice in.
That's right.
Sure.
And it's not us perceived to be saying, no, we don't want to hear that, but we do want to hear from this person. We do
That-
want to hear from this person, but we don't care what you say.
And that's why it's 2 board members on the
Right,
committee
right, not more than-
and a handful of community members, and you're never a majority on the committee or a subcommittee
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't say this, but I always say this to the first committee meeting. I am neutral on content. I'm not an educational consultant. I'm not going to tell you, you need
Right.
this program. So
Right.
I'm not only a facilitator, but I'm neutral on whatever you come up with. I help you reach the best plan possible, but I'm not going to tell you, yeah, you shouldn't do that, you should do this. I'll provide feedback from what other school districts are doing, if asked, sure. I'll give you a copy of their plan even. It's not sacred, but
Right.
because we're all dealing with the same issues. So how did Hudson deal with that? Oh, enrollment's down in Muscoma Valley, what are they doing?
Yeah.
I can show you that,
Right.
Yeah.
why not?
Right.
So, I provide that as well.
Well, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
We'll have some further discussion. And
Yeah, absolutely.
As far as timeline, we'll get back to you and, set it in places probably as soon as we can.
Yeah, sounds
I
good.
would think so that we can have something in place through, and the budget's obviously going to be a big component of
Right.
Certainly.
some of
Right.
our goals. potentially.
Yeah, always is.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, whatever that is, we know
Sure.
each other, Matt. You
Yeah.
know I'll work
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah.
You know I'll work with you.
Yeah.
So, if I could just conclude first, actually last, thank you again for having us up. We hope it was helpful for you. Talk amongst yourselves. I trust somebody will be in touch with myself or Mark. Judy, if you're going to be the point person for the initial, I trust Mark and you to converse, just copy me on it so I'm in the loop. If there's any follow-up questions, you're driving home tonight, you got some other questions, get those either to me or to Judy to get in touch with Mark, and we'll be back in touch. So thank you for your time, thank you for the invitation to come on up, always a pleasure, and we look forward to working with you.
All right, thanks, Barry.
All right,
Thanks, Mark.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again, good seeing you again.
Yeah.
You're really excited.
Matt, good seeing you again as always.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for doing what you all do on the board.
So I don't know, does anybody want to have any further discussion? I know we've discussed this prior to their visit. I think we're all in agreement it's something we want to move forward with. So I guess would you be the point person
Yeah.
to get the timeline set up? Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the June 5th, 2019 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve those minutes.
Thanks, Vance. A second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody have any comments or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Stay.
Thank you, Brian. And that motion carries. The next item is the approval of the non-public minutes of May 22nd, 2019.
I'll make a motion to accept those.
One second.
Thank you, Vance. Thank you, Brian. Any discussion? All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions? And the approval of the non-public minutes of June 5th, 2019.
Motion.
For approval, thank you.
Yes.
And a second by Joe. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Abstentions?
Abstain, please.
And Brian, and that motion carries. Correspondence, Judy, I didn't have any.
I don't have any.
No, okay. Reports, Deb, Business Administrator's report.
There are manifests going around for this week's payroll, which I had sent out that notification today. So, just take a look at those. That's about it right now.
That's it. All right, getting all set with the year end?
Working on it. And starting the new year.
Yeah,
That's probably
yeah.
the biggest thing right
That's the
now.
biggest part. Judy, Superintendent's report.
There is a newsletter packet in your folder from NCES, which is North Country Educational Services. And they've been doing monthly updates, so as soon as I get a copy of it, I'll be putting it in your packet, just so you can see what's going on and what they're offering. Again, I just want to remind you that in October, we will be, the entire North Country teachers, educators will be attending a polybath, which is a behavioral consultant presentation for the day. And that is only costing the district, I don't want to say only, but it's costing the district $1,500 for all of the teachers to go to this. And to have her come to just this district is thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Right.
So through grant monies that they have incurred, they're able to do that for the educators. And it goes right along with one of our focus points, which was the social emotional learning, and that will help develop strategies for the teachers to be able to use those strategies in the classroom for those kiddos. Let's see, we did go to, again, North Country Scholars was on May 21st at the White Mountain Regional High School, and it was congratulations to Samantha Tower and Dakota Smith. They were the New Hampshire Scholars that were presented on that day. Also, graduation and continuation were very successful this year, and we congratulate all the students, both in the 8th grade and the seniors. It was very nice.
What was the feedback, the overall feedback of splitting the awards?
I haven't heard any negative feedback.
I mean, I know that it was kind of driven by the students.
Right.
Which is fine, to
Yeah.
try something different. I just didn't know if it was.
Yeah, the students are the ones that decided what they wanted on each of the evenings,
Yeah.
and they went ahead and did it. I think it came out very well. Both sessions were, there were a lot of people
Sure.
in attendance, so it worked out well. It appeared. We will be getting the handbooks and the student handbook and the staff handbook together, and that will be something that the board will be looking at as a whole prior to getting it printed. And so that will be coming up soon. Construction is starting next week. We just had a pre-construction meeting this past week with all of the vendors, and they had a tour of the areas that were being worked on, the front of the high school as well as the science rooms, what they focused in on, and how to manage those areas safely. We did have a meeting, including the fire chief, as far as safety issues and what rooms could be used and what rooms had to be blocked off and what areas had to be blocked off. So that was all done through the committee, and what classrooms we could still use that were still safe to use during the construction time. And that was all determined. A map was developed, and that was passed out to everyone, so everyone was aware of what rooms that can be used and cannot be used. We did move the main office from the high school, in the front of the high school, to the library, so that people can still come in through the library and will be able to be seen through the people inside the building, so that we're not bringing anybody that we're not seeing into the building.
Is Brett okay with all
But
the
yet,
changes?
all of the activities are still happening, so that was the other reason why we needed that committee, was so that they could designate what classrooms, how many classrooms we needed, for the summer activities, and where were the safe areas that we could use. That was very, very helpful, and that was completed. So they're starting next week. Everything is on schedule. It was my first pre-construction meeting. Very interesting. Let's see. There's also in your packet some information from Mrs. Krill's students, that they've done some writing samples that I did include there. And also there was a progress report from ADAPT for the year, so that's an interesting piece of information. We did have some little pests come into the kitchen area, which we're taking care of as soon as we were notified of that. Let's see. And for just to let you know that the schedule, we will also, once we have our administrative meeting this summer, we will be reviewing the schedules and classes and whatnot, and we will be following a 7-period day schedule for next year. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Judy. Anybody have any questions on the packets of information?
What, we just had the survey results last week of the schedule, the middle high school schedule. Did that drive the change to a 7-period schedule?
But the middle school is definitely on a 7-day, and the high school is too, because it was 50-50 on the high school. The middle school was definitely not for it, and the majority was not for it, but the high school was 50-50, so we did go back. We may look internally if there's little buckets of time where if there was for example, a science lab that was going to take longer, could the teachers work that out individually amongst themselves
Sure.
to do it rather than move the whole schedule around, or an English time when they needed to send, do their writing and whatever, those types of things. So we are going to talk about that and see how that works out, but it is going to be based on a 7-day schedule.
Anybody else? Is there a principal's report that was handed out, or?
I did have one more thing.
Oh, sure.
We will be putting out a bid on transportation
Okay.
for our transportation that we do, that vocational and whatnot, because right now we don't have a person to be able to, direct that particular area.
Okay.
And that's been posted, and we just haven't been able to fill the fleet manager's position
Okay.
at this time. So we're gonna put it out there.
Okay.
Something we've talked about too, budget-wise.
How many drivers is that involved? Just one or?
Yeah, what is good is if you can have one full-time, plus that person takes on the fleet manager, and then you could use a part-time. The rest are just part-timers. Come in if you have one or two part-timers. Yeah, it's not very long, but we do need that fleet manager / full-time so that everything moves smoothly with that. So I'm working on that. Okay, that's it. That was my last thing.
And was there a principal? I know Scott's not here, but did he leave?
I added it to
mine.
mine.
Yours?
Yeah,
Okay.
I put it out.
When is the new principal start? The end of the month?
In July, yeah. You'll be coming in July 8th.
All right. Committee reports. Policy committee. Looks like we had quite a bit on the first reading.
Yeah, the first reading was all of the ones that are on your agenda, and now those will be moving forward. I do also have another policy in which I will be forwarding to the policy committees. We're not meeting until July,
Yeah.
but I would like the policy committee to look at it first. It's involving cell phones
Yep.
and usage, and the middle school is requesting that we look at that policy and see if we can do something with the middle school. Yeah. Limit the use in the middle school. So I did meet with the middle school representatives, teachers, and we talked about it, and then I just met with one of them today for final revision on the policy.
I'll take that just to look at.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I'll email that out, and then we'll be able to
Okay.
move forward with that.
All right. So you're looking to move these forward? to second
Yes,
reading
please.
now?
Yes, those could be
Okay.
move forward. The second reading.
Yeah, that's just for
It looks like the changes were all related to the school board association. Yeah. All right, I know no one wants to do this, so I will make a motion to move from first reading to second reading the following policies: GADA, GBEC, GBED, JICG, JCA, JEC.
I'll second.
Thanks, Vance. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? And that motion carries. Any other committees meet between the last meeting and now? I know we didn't have facilities. Wellness, anything, safety? anything?
Wellness committee, and we had tech committee and but those the minutes have not come out yet, so
Okay.
I'll be putting them in the next packet.
All right. Staff nominations, recommendations, and resignations.
Okay, let's see. We have for recommendations. We have Aaron Laux for the AD position. Brianna Bennett for paraprofessional. And those are the two recommendations.
Which building, what level is Brianna Barrett?
That is elementary.
Elementary. We'll do this one at a time, separately.
Sure.
I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of Aaron Laux for athletic director.
Second.
Okay.
Thanks, Jason. Any comments, questions? Please signify, all in favor, please signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? And that motion carries.
And I'll make a motion to approve Brianna Barrett as a new elementary paraprofessional.
Is it Bennett or Barrett?
Bennett.
Bennett, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thanks, Nance.
I'll second.
Thanks, Jasmine. Any questions, comments? All in favor, please, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? Just want you guys, I'm thinking about ice cream after. That's what that was. Okay, and that, yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, do we still have to hire more parents too?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so.
The next item on the agenda is a school board member.
I have a nomination.
Oh, you have a nomination.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, nominations.
Nomination Beth Vignoni, Vignone. Kindergarten position.
I'll make a motion to approve Beth Vignoni as new kindergarten classroom teaching position.
I'll second.
Thanks, Joe. Anybody have any questions?
Obviously, she must be a certified teacher and everything, right?
She's a certified teacher. She will be, I'm sorry, she's a certified teacher and she will be placed on step 1.
Where does she come
Just down the road, but
from? Yeah, I'm just curious.
not very far away.
I'm just curious. I meant as far as where she taught before.
She has not taught before.
Okay.
She's Southern, had a little bit of experience, but she's right out of college, a year out of college, a couple years out.
Where'd she graduate from?
Massachusetts.
Okay.
State college. But one of the state colleges, not Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
Pittsburgh, Franklin.
Pittsburgh State, Pittsburgh.
Any other questions? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Abstentions? That motion carries.
Thank you.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay.
No more.
School board member candidate selection. We had posted, with Tony's resignation, we had posted for letters of interest for new school board members. We received 2. We received a letter from Tammy Ham and also from Karen Blake Mossman. And those letters were in your blue packet.
Do we want to do that last week and go into non-public? or-
That's up to you guys.
I thought we discussed that last
Yeah.
time.
You can't go in non-public.
John, we didn't ask.
Okay, I'm just correcting you.
It's not the vote on anything.
So if you guys would like to do that, we can do that. Yeah, okay. All right, so we're going to move that down. And the next item on the agenda is the budget committee request.
As you all know, during the last budget session, we tried to get some documents from the administration they refused to give us, which we took a vote at the budget committee, and we decided to hire an attorney. We're looking to get those attorney fees back. The fact that we asked for things that we are legally entitled to, and even after the administration was given the law saying that we were entitled to these things, they refused to comply. In this packet of stuff, I have all the documentation of things that we were refused, that miraculously we were no longer refused once an attorney got involved, once the 2 attorneys got involved, the school's attorney and us. So we're asking for it to be replaced. I realized at the time we did this, We didn't realize we had to come to the board first, that we only know that because we were told that after the fact, but at that point, it was too late.
Who told you that?
It came from the superintendent through an email. Okay, and I don't know where she got that, I don't know if it's true, I haven't even delved into that to find out what the accuracy of that is. All I know is, the 7 of us, 6 of us are here, okay? Mike had to take his father to the hospital, so that's the reason he's not here. There was a unanimous decision to hire an attorney, and as I stated before, all we wanted were the documents we were legally entitled to. We were refused, and after we hired the attorney, we got them. All right, so you can't sit there and say, no, you can't have that because it's privileged. No, I'm not going to give you this. I have, like I said, I have the documentation. Yeah, it depends.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Since the budget committee is like an entity of the school, did you guys contact the school district attorney first? Because I think they represent you.
No, because the school district attorney works for the school board and the administration. I mean, we did not call, but the lawyer that we hired contacted her, okay, Barbara Lohman, and between the two of them, like I said, it was almost immediate. Everything we asked for, we got. Okay, you can't just say you can't have them because I don't want to give them to you.
How much?
I'm sorry, Joe?
No, I said, how much are they?
The total amount was a little over 4 hours' work for $1146.75 on our end. I don't know what it was on your end, but that's not what we're asking for.
So you're going to share that with us, or
I'm sorry?
you're going to share the information?
You want all this information?
Well,
I
if
will-
you're making accusations, we might as well see it.
Okay, if you want it, you want to go through this all tonight?
No, I just want to see it and I'll take it. So-
Oh, I'll make copies of it. This is my only copy.
Oh, okay.
Okay, if you want copies, I'll give you all the copies, and there's probably some more on my email that I haven't copied yet.
I mean, I just, from the board's perspective, throughout this entire process, we were informed of all the requests that were being made. We're informed of all the communication between our attorney, the district's attorney, and the superintendent, and all the information that was provided with direction from the attorney. So,
Why did it change when we had an attorney get involved?
I'm not sure. that it
I'm
is.
not, I don't want, I'm sorry?
When I was on the budget committee, I can say that a lot of the stuff did not come to us in a timely manner. And at the end, if I remember right, we kind of ran out of time and had to do that
Yeah.
to get the stuff before we had to present the budget. So
Right.
I think that's how it ended up at the end.
No, but you were all aware, you all got, the entire budget committee all got the responses from, that were sent by email. Anybody else wants to have a discussion, say anything, jump up and have at it. But that's what we're asking for. $1,146.75 just to reimburse us for what we were charged.
Could you leave that, make copies and leave that at the SAU office?
Make copies of
Yeah.
all this stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
I can't do anything, we just
Yeah.
Yeah.
hear it.
Was there, if you didn't contact our attorney that already essentially represented you, is that because of collusion? You didn't want to talk to the attorney that we already have?
I thought it was a conflict at the time.
Yeah,
But I mean, the attorney that we have, that represents the district, would interpret if we were not following the process. Like, you could have just asked him.
I don't
If we weren't
remember.
following the process, if that attorney then said, gave you not the answer, then to move on, but to not let them interpret what the process was is the part that I'm confused about.
Well, you guys have put a lot of faith in what the superintendent has told you, and she's told us that, the district's attorney says, I'm not entitled to give you this, I'm not entitled to give you that. And if that's what she's saying, aren't we supposed to, Joe, you got the emails.
I mean, that's kind of how it did go, and
Yeah,
it was very
absolutely.
frustrating.
I think in fairness, there was no communication, right?
No.
Let's just call a spade in reality.
And my only comment is, as an official board of the school, we are entitled to a legal budget, whether it be the school's attorney or our own attorney. We're no different than you guys, that we should have legal representation. And I feel at the time it couldn't be the same attorney, because that's the attorney that was telling Judith that, no, they can't have this. And that's what I based it on.
The only step we didn't do as a budget committee
Yeah.
was come to the board before and ask for the money.
Yeah.
But we ran out of
Exactly.
time. And I do remember specifically that we did run out of time and we had to present the budget.
And then at one point, Matt, if I could speak, they made us go through the right to know law, which we're an official board elected just like you guys, same thing. And Judith made us go through the right to know law, and then I did get information. But we shouldn't have to go through the right to know law. I don't have to do it with the town of Lincoln or any board I've been on over there. So it was constant roadblocks, and I think that was our only option, and I personally wish we did it a lot sooner. But that's my opinion.
And then just my other question is, why are the fees being brought to our attention today? You hired the attorney, you got the information, we went to budget.
Right?
Did they just give you a bill?
No, I just got the final bill that came out, when did it come out? Probably in April. All right, and I didn't, just with time and everything else, didn't have time to get here, and, you know, I've been busy too.
And was there a pretense that there was going to be paid for differently back in, leading into March when you guys were hiring the attorney? That's all I'm getting at. If you knew the money was going to be needed, right, in January?
I don't remember when we took the vote to do it, probably January.
But you knew that at that point you were going to somehow have to pay for an attorney, and now 6 months later, we're looking for money. Was there, like, you knew that it was going to cost money, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But we're entitled to it as a budget committee, though.
What's that?
So the budget committee is entitled to it.
No, I understand that, but it took 6 months before, this is the first time I've heard that you guys would like to have $1,146.75.
This is the first time I've heard that a lawyer was
To
hired.
pay for an attorney that you hired 6 months ago.
Well, the superintendent knew that, Jasmine, and I thought she relayed that to the board, because I know Tony knew it. So, you know, hey, you know, we're just looking to move forward. I mean, you're stuck with the majority of us for another couple of years,
I
so,
don't like
you know.
that term.
I'm sorry?
I don't like that term. I like to look at it that we work together, not just stuck.
Well, I would like to do that too, but, you know, if this board was in place, okay, before, I would have no trouble to try to come up and talk to you. The board that was in place in January, I'm not sure we could have even done with. Okay? So, I'm sorry?
Does it really, it has nothing to do with-
It's different, it's
So,
different, it's different
I really
enough.
don't want to continue this
So that's
conversation. So this
actually
is-
a pretty interesting statement.
Well, it
Okay,
doesn't
well-
matter. So
Yeah.
the fact of the matter is, you're making a request for the board to approve the payment of these bills, and you're saying that these are the reasons why, and you have documentation to back up those reasons. I, as a school board member, before I make any sort of decision, or put a vote forward for anybody else to vote on, if I were to go ahead and do that, I would just like to see it. That's all.
Okay, well, I'll go through all this stuff and all my emails, and I'll print out all the no's, and you guys can make your decision, and we'll go from there.
Request be in writing, please.
Yes,
I'm sorry?
make the request in writing. The request for us to pay for these fees.
Okay.
That's not too much.
Could I also ask, like, I mean, I don't doubt what you're saying you believe in. Like, could we get an official report from the school district attorney, just that
Certainly.
this is what happened? Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
New business, there's none. Continuing business, none, unless anybody has anything they want to bring forward.
Yeah, I just said one thing, in the future, whether it's July or August, could we revisit or get an update on, in the fall, we had a board discussion about website, and we had some ideas, and you guys came back with a plan for committee development and
I
stuff.
did have those, I just got those minutes too, so
Okay.
that was part of the tech meeting.
So, like, you know, what's changed on the website, who's doing what, what's the process? Just because I feel like it's been,
Yeah, and
It's
they've
been a
been
while.
meetings, yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll have them.
okay.
Anybody else? All right, no student, no staff, community. Anybody else?
Just
Tammy?
a quick comment.
Yeah.
Graduation, the way that everything went with graduation and the different nights was great. I went to most of the things. It was fantastic, worked well.
Yeah,
Kind of unfortunate that those, the community that gives out all the scholarships, $53,900
Yeah, it's
for the
amazing.
scholarships to our 20 graduates was amazing.
Yeah.
It's kind of unfortunate that they didn't get to watch those same kids graduate the same night.
Yeah.
However, loved the shorter graduation
Yeah.
ceremony. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's what we're hearing. We're hearing both sides of it. I mean, I
Exactly.
know that nothing's come back to the school, but there's people that really love the approach, and there's others that kind of feel like there was a disconnect.
There was a little bit of a disconnect. However, even saying that, I loved the two different nights. That you wanted to choose Playhouse, one here. It was. I could take either one. I think they were both fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the graduation was great.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I do feel bad for the sponsors. They don't really get announced like they used to. So,
At the graduation.
yeah.
Yeah, but they did at the awards night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got to talk more.
And they got to
at the
talk,
end
they
of
got
the
to
night.
speak more.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
ultimately, that's what that graduating student body wanted. So
Right.
Oh, no, I get
it was
that.
their night.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I would just like to say, as a community member who also happened to be on the budget committee, that it's such a shame that the process sunk to the level it did. We didn't get any participation from the school board or the superintendent. We didn't have those resources
But just
at
if I
our
can chime
disposals.
in, we've talked about it a lot, and I would agree the school board lack of participation was unfortunate. But in years past, whether it was Alice or JJ, after a budget work session, people would pull up their calendars and say what dates worked, and that didn't happen
Yeah.
for us this year. We were told this is the date, and if I couldn't make it, we didn't have a participant. And so, just for that, it wasn't really a school board fault, I don't think.
Yeah, no, the communication was very flawed, obviously resulting
On both sides.
in what happened. It was very, very flawed, and I sure hope, that we can work together this next time. But we couldn't get any information. We couldn't get the documents and things that we felt we needed, and that's why we did what we did. We couldn't get them. We could not get any actual figures. How can you build a budget if you don't know what you spent the year before? And that's all that this was about. We could not get any data on what was spent. So that's what happened, and I feel real bad about it, for sure. And sure, we'll do everything I can as a budget committee member to make sure it doesn't happen again. And try the best I can to communicate well with the office and the school board. And I just wanted to say that I feel very, very badly that it
Sure,
sunk
yeah.
to that kind of a.
I don't think you're alone. I think
Process.
there's a lot of people on this side that feel the same way and have frustrations. They might be a little bit different, some of the frustrations. But it is too bad that sometimes it happens that way. When I think at the end of the day, we're all, we want to all end up in the same place.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, but for some reason, there's just these walls, and for some reason that creates a lot of frustration and makes the process a lot more difficult than it
Right.
needs to be.
It broke down. I mean, and
Yep.
and it can be fixed and
Yeah,
mended.
yeah.
Let's use it as a learning experience and just work together.
Nowhere to go but up, you guys. Come on, seriously, let's look at this. Seriously.
No, listen, it's,
Just saying.
but it's both sides. I
Yeah.
would
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
both
Yes,
sides. I mean,
absolutely.
everybody can point the finger where
Yeah.
they want. There's responsibilities on all sides
Absolutely.
of it. But it's not going to change unless the people change.
I'm
Right.
not pointing the finger. I'm just saying, let's just work together.
Right.
In the beginning, Vance is right, there was no, these are the dates, you come, you don't, because we all decided between 7 of us, there's no way to get this figured out. And that's how we ended up with the dates, but.
And it just, honestly, it was quicksand from there. Let's
Oh, yeah.
call it a spade a spade.
Yeah.
That's it, you guys.
It's just downhill fast.
I mean, there's a lot of history too. So when one thing goes wrong, people go to the back of their mind of what's happened before, and that's on both sides. And
Onward and upward is my motto.
anybody else in the
It is,
community?
right?
Yep.
That's it, you guys. Onward and upward.
Mark, do you have your hand up?
Sometimes it's good just to keep your mouth shut.
Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
I did, but I thought about it.
All right. Good job. I'm proud of you.
And that's the beginning of summer.
So I'm gonna poll the board. We actually have 2 non-publics this evening. So I am gonna pull the board to go into non-public under RSA 91-A:3, discussion of matters that are likely to adversely affect the reputation of a person other than a member of the school board. Joe?
Yes.
Vance?
Yes.
Jasmine? Brian?
Yes.
And me, yes. So we will adjourn, we'll come back in, then we're gonna go back into non-public.
Thank
So
you for listening
guys.
to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I guess. Good night.